You're listening to News New Mexico, where we try to help New Mexico businesses every single day.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
Hold on to your lug nuts. It's time for an overhaul.
Turn it up some.
I'm your huckleberry. I don't give jobs, I hire men. You won't give me anything, and I won't give you anything.
Collision, sir.
Whoa, relax. We're not even moving.
There's no crying in baseball.
We are News New Mexico. It's Tuesday, February 14th, 2012, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Jim Spence will be here directly. I'm Michael Swickard. Aaron Henry Diaz is here. Jerry Harden is our producer-director. You can go to newsnem.com and follow along. 10 years ago, today was my first broadcast in talk radio. I started the Michael Swickard Talk Show on KSNM AM 570 on this date 10 years ago. Been doing talk radio. Thank you guys for allowing me to be part of your driving experience. On the Newsmaker line, we have Marita Noon. Energy makes America great.
Org.
Yes, we have. She does her part. Org. And so
that's just because you used to always get it .com, and I had to correct you.
That's why
.org.
.org. Now, it's 58 degrees in your room right now. Holy smokes. Marita, it's cold in your house.
It is cold in my house.
Now, how we know this is you have a column, which we referenced, the penalties of feel-good energy policies. And so
yes, sir.
Take us through that. You've got 58 degrees. You're using wood pellets to heat. How come you didn't go with all that cheap solar energy that you could have had?
Well, frankly, because I can't afford it.
Oh, cheap.
I looked into it. I gave it a serious look because, like as you said and as I said in my column, that for financial reasons I set the thermostat on my house at 58 degrees. The first year I lived in this house, I set it at a temperature like what I set my old house at, and the bill was so outrageous that I had to back it down to something that was tolerable, and I installed a pellet stove that I use when I come home to kind of bring the temperature up, and the pellet stove is in my bedroom, so I can keep that room nice and warm, and the rest of the house is I bundle up during the daytime. I bought one of those, not a Snuggie, what do they call it? Forever Lazy, that I put on over my clothes when I get too cold. I zip one of those things up over me like a blanket that I can wear to help keep me warm when I'm working at home.
Well, in the old days, let's talk about the old days. Abraham Lincoln days.
Talk about the old days on the ranch.
People that Abraham Lincoln, in the time that he lived, there was not central heating, and so it was pretty cold. And when somebody came over to talk, everybody crawled under some covers, what they called bundling, because it was too cold to sit and talk with them. And everybody, they had their clothes on, but they had these covers on them because evidently it was like 20 degrees, 10 degrees sometimes during the winter, and they didn't use solar energy back then either.
No, they probably wish they could have, except for it's too expensive, and that's the harsh reality of it. It's not only is it expensive for the person who's going to install it, of course, unless you get some of those rebates or tax cuts or, but that's part of the problem with it. It can't stand on its own. And the column that I wrote, it was kind of inspired by, I discovered a news story that in Hawaii, they had installed so much solar, people had put solar panels on their roofs in Hawaii, that it cut the number of customers to the electric company. And the electric company still has all the things they still need to maintain the wires, they still have to provide a lot of services, because those houses using solar, they're not off the grid. They maybe give the electric company some power during the day when they have extra, but at night they're pulling power off of the grid. And so as a result of that, the electric company in Hawaii Electric Company, HECO, is having to raise their rates for everyone. And so what it turns out is that the wealthy few who can actually afford to put the solar panels on their house and then supposedly get this free energy, which has probably about a 20-year payoff. They're actually costing the energy company, and so they're raising their rates. And now everybody is going to be punished with higher rates. Everybody that's not using the solar is going to be punished because some of those wealthy few are. And so that was the basic story that I used as kind of the launching point for the column.
You remember that P.J. O'Rourke, one of the great writers, said, if you think that health care costs a lot now, wait till you see how much it costs when it's free. It's kind of the same thing.
That's what we're seeing.
So if you think that solar energy costs a lot now, wait till you see when somebody mandates it or something.
Yeah, well, and that's what we've got in the second story in my column is the CAFE standards. And I'm amazed as I'm talking to people out and about when I'm giving a speech or whatever, how few people are even really aware of what CAFE standards are. And CAFE standards are not something that applies to Starbucks. CAFE standards, CAFE is an acronym, of course, as the government loves acronyms. It stands for Corporate Average Fuel Economy. And what it basically means is that the president has mandated that car manufacturers produce cars that have an average of a certain mile MPG. Now, Americans like to buy trucks and four-wheel drives, SUVs, things like that. We Americans like those bigger cars, and those are what's selling. But in order for, say, for example, Chevy, to have their average fleet mileage come out to the 54.5 MPG that the president has mandated by a certain date, they've got to produce cars like the Volt, for example, that get an equivalent of 93 MPG is what they label the Volt at. And so you take these low-mileage trucks and the high-mileage Volt and you average it out, and maybe it comes out in the middle. And so the government is mandating that. But you know what's happened is because people are using less gas, they're paying less highway taxes.
Oh, shuckins. And so now they got to come out with another way to tax you because they made you have high mileage. Yes.
Exactly.
Marita Noon, we're going to come back and talk to you some more. She has a website, energymakesamericagreat.org. We'll have more with Marita Noon when we come back. We are News New Mexico 14.
We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah. That's the way it's always been. We are News New Mexico. Jim Spence is here. I'm Michael Swickard, also Aaron Henry Diaz.
So,
Marita Noon.
Marita, I'm listening to these CAFE requirements, and I'm wondering, is they base these on how many volts they make or how many volts they sell? Because they're making them, but they're not selling them.
Well, honestly, I don't know that. It's a good question. I believe it would be how many they sell, but, they've got optimistic projections for the Volt. They're not going anywhere, but they do have optimistic projections.
Yeah, they're selling them to Rosie Scenario, from what I understand. She's the only person I know who's actually buying them.
Yeah, your problem with it is it may not be what people want, and so what they've said is you have to take a car you don't want because the government wants you to have it. That sounds like Yugoslavia and the Hugo to me.
Well, if you watch the current Volt ads, I just love how at the end they say, it's the car we had to build. And I think, it's not the car anybody wants, but it's the car that someone up top told you will build this car, the car we had to build. It's amazing. I in my story, in the research I did, I discovered the state of Kansas has only 24 volts registered in the entire state. So I don't know what
so
New
many?
Mexico's is.
Why so many, Marita?
Yeah, I have no idea because you can't. They're not good for rural. They're not good for people who live, outside of the city, and that's one of the things that the environmentalists kind of push. They want everybody to be in cities because those of us who are out here in the rural, we're a little harder to control, and we kind of do our own thing, and we cling to our guns and our Bibles out here.
Well, and grow everybody's food and that kind of silly stuff
like that. Yeah,
just crazy stuff.
Now, Marita, the issue here is the fact you can get 40 miles on a Volt, as long as you don't use the heater. Now, you say it's 58 degrees and it ain't going to be much fun driving into Albuquerque if you can't use the heater because you're in a Volt and you don't want to use up the power.
Well,
there's days I look forward to getting into my vehicle with the heated seats just so I can get warm.
So, Marita, if everybody were to buy these plug-in automobiles, where in the world will we get the electricity when the Obama administration is trying to shut down every coal-fired power plant in the nation?
Well, the problem just exacerbates, doesn't it? Just gets bigger and bigger because we do that when you're driving a plug-in electric, you're really just deferring the exhaust from the tailpipe of your car to the stack at the power plant. And the idea that we can have wind and solar, as we've seen, really doesn't pencil out.
Not unless the sun shines 24 hours a day and the wind blows all the time.
Yeah, which we know it doesn't, and so that's why we need natural gas. And, of course, these days with the price of natural gas where it is, and, of course, if everybody went to natural gas, if we had all CNG vehicles, for example, the price of natural gas would go up with the demand. But it's cheaper now to build a natural gas-fueled power plant than it is to string the wires from an industrial wind plant to the population base. The transmission lines are so expensive that it's cheaper to actually build a natural gas plant close to the people than to build a wind farm.
One of the things you said was you were surprised at how few people understood the renewable mandates. Do you think that they also, and we can talk about this when we come back?
No, she's not.
That's right.
Marita,
we're already done.
Sorry,
you're replacing me with someone else.
Oh, no, we got to do some sports. It's March Madness coming up here. Marita Noon, EnergyMakesAmericaGreat.org. Thank you for what you do for New Mexico.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
We are News.